De l'île Palmetto ou Latanier au canal d'Elcombre à la prairie acadienne, l'avocat Bernard Douan sert le peuple acadien depuis 45 ans. Pour la planification successorale, les affaires ou les blessures corporelles, apprenez plus à bernarddouan.com.
Dans un de nos derniers épisodes de La Veillée, on parle de les influences sur la scène de la musique cajun en Louisiane, particulièrement les femmes et aussi la reine Cheryl Cormier. Mais ce soir, on mise la lumière dans un différent coin. On parle d'une des familles qui n'est pas assez reconnue, mais une des influences énormes sur la scène de la musique cajun en Louisiane. Seulement sur La Veillée. Nos histoires, notre langage, notre peuple. Bonsoir vous autres. Bienvenue à La Veillée, l'émission hebdomadaire des interviews et reportages présentés par Louisiana Public Broadcasting et Télé-Louisiane. Mon nom, c'est Drake Leblanc. De nos jours, la musique cajun créole use beaucoup l'accordion et la guitare, mais les puristes connaissent que la musique française en Louisiane a commencé avec le violon. Un maître violoniste en particulier s'est distingué au début du XXe siècle pendant la Renaissance musicale cajuenne, Oran, Doc Guidry. À ce soir, on va parler avec les collaborateurs musicaux de Doc et avec son petit-fils et tout sur sa vie, son violon et de son impact sur notre musique locale et notre chère langue française.
Pour Andy Guidry, qui a grandi à Scott en Louisiane, près de Lafayette, le français faisait simplement partie du quotidien.
As a child, I didn't recognize it as much because it was just kind of normal. Everything was normal. All the phrases that I grew up around, or words that were just casually thrown into conversation. To me, it's all sort of normal, a normal thing. I didn't really get it until I got older.
La cuisine cajun et la musique aussi étaient considérées comme normales.
As a child, I probably hear Cajun being thrown around and, eat crawfish and, all gumbo and everything that is important to this, unique culture. But, at that point in time, I don't think that it ever occurred to me that not everyone was eating crawfish on Good Friday, and...
Ce qui rendait la vie d'Andy unique, c'était son héritage. L'un de ses grands-parents n'était pas seulement un francophone, c'était un violonneur légendaire et une icône de la Renaissance du français et de la musique cajun, Oran Doc Guidry.
I did have a lot of musicians in my family. My grandfather on my dad's side was a pretty prominent Cajun fiddler in the 30s through probably the 70s. Probably played music up until then.
On est parti pour un petit plat de la musique, puis on a une visite avec quelqu'un de bien connu à l'autour d'ici, Monsieur Doc Guidry et son groupe Nez Piqué.
Doc n'était pas seulement célèbre. Il a défini le genre cajun à ses débuts. Le musicien Hector Douillon l'explique.
Doc Guidry, je crois que Doc est un petit peu plus jeune que moi, Nobel. Il a dit le jour où on était joué à Homer. On a joué un concert à Homer il y a peut-être 3 semaines à mon passé. Et Doc est député chef. Il a dit à ses beaux, il dit, tu connais, il dit, j'ai un petit garçon, il dit, mes premiers balles, j'ai été, il dit, c'est beau que ça, il était pas joué. Il dit, ça c'est pas hier, il dit, c'est dans 1928.
Mais aujourd'hui encore, les musiciens cajun et zarico peuvent percevoir l'influence de Doc dans les morceaux qu'il joue. Travis Mott, musicien originaire de Pointe-d'Église et chef du groupe Zydeco Kingpins, en témoigne.
Well, I never actually met Doc. I just grew up with the records, you know. Huge fan of all the stuff he played with Lawrence Walker, Aldous Roger, you know, in his own 40, the 78s he had, like in the 40s, 30s and 40s with the son of Acadiana. Really good records, you know. Doc was just, like I was saying earlier before we started, every now and then you meet a musician that has it. He had a lot of it. He sang as well, but man, he was really known for his really great fiddle chops. I mean, there's videos of him playing with Johnny Gimbel, who was George Strait's fiddle players, and they just look at him like, wow, this guy can play, you know. He was that guy.
Pour préserver son héritage, Travis ne se contente pas d'intégrer les sonorités de Doc dans sa musique. Il a décidé de collaborer avec Oran, le fils de Doc, pour restaurer le violon de celui-ci et le mettre à disposition des musiciens de la communauté pour des enregistrements.
I had three fiddles that played. There was three fiddles that recorded out. There's Tony Thibodeau, Louis Foreman, and Doc Guidry. They all played three on one record. And I had the other two fiddles from Louis Foreman and Tony. So I called Oran and I said, man, I have to have this as part of the collection, you know? And like I said earlier, me running the studio, all these guys come in the studio and they want to record on Doc's fiddle. So I'd rather see people record on it than sit in a museum where nobody could see or have access to it, you know? But I think we both agreed that the fiddles needed to stay together and for the local fiddle players and musicians to have access to it. It's not like somebody's trying to buy it to resell it or make money on it or, you know, nothing like that. It's just to keep his legacy alive and the actual fiddle players to better come and just have access to it and also record with it, you know.
Doc Guidry aurait sans doute approuvé ce genre d'initiative. En effet, il fut l'un des premiers défenseurs de la préservation de la langue française, un combat qui est aujourd'hui largement partagé à travers l'État.
He was a big part in the community where he lived, you know, out in Acadiana in between, you know, Scott and everywhere else that he'd play. And he was also a big part of the culture in other ways. He was a part of Cajun when it started as a translator, and he also campaigned for Jimmy Davis when he was running for governor. So they would go on tour and play music together.
Andy n'a pas pris le violon, mais il est fier d'être un Guidry. Comme son grand-père, il souhaite perpétuer et partager son héritage à travers la cuisine.
Long term, I would like to open up one of my own restaurants one day, and, you know, we'll see what that would look like later on. You know, I'd like to keep the ball rolling, keep on, you know, becoming better every day.
Quant à Travis, il se réjouit d'entendre l'influence de Doc dans ses violons et dans les mélodies de futures générations de musiciens louisianais.
So those are things I'd want to see continue as, you know, when I'm dead and gone, is the people just having access to the local musicians and having that excitement like most local people have when they meet their local idols, so to speak, you know.
Merci tout le monde. Mon nom c'est Drake LeBlanc, and we're here with Oran Guidry for tonight's episode of La Veillée. Mr. Oran, thank you for joining me today.
Well, thank you.
And who is your dad? For those that don't know, who's your dad?
Oran Guidry, April 28th, 1918. So he was working many jobs. He was doing nighttime jobs, also radio programs. So they were working like 9 gigs a week. He took to the fiddle like a duck took to the water. But he was so talented. Just no matter what he pick up, you know, he could play it. He figured out how to play it, you know. He recorded this album in '66, I think, and it's got the song "Over the Waves," and he told me that his mother hummed the song, and he learned it like she wanted him to play it. And boy, I tell you, when I heard that, it really hit me in the heart, you know. I had big shoes to fill, and I don't think I filled them.
Well, when did you start attempting to fill those shoes? Like, how old were you when you started picking
Well,
up?
Dad bought me a little box guitar, and he showed me open chords, you know, and I started singing and playing guitar in school, you know, in the 6th grade. I was so shy. It took so long for me to get the nerve to start the song, you know. And I got over my fear later on. Boy, I tell you what, I was so uptight. And later on, I played with Zachary Richard, and we toured with Jimmy Buffett across the United States. When I was playing with Warren Storm and Willie T at Podner's Club back in the early 80s, Dad and Evelyn, his wife, were there, and I'm telling you, they cut loose, man. I couldn't get over it. Great a dancer he was.
I learned a whole lot of stuff that I didn't know, you know, not only about your father, but also about you. So, à la prochaine, as we would say, right?
Way.
Les années 30 et quand Doc est devenu une star semblant très lointaine à cette heure, ce qui rend encore plus puissant le fait de voir des images de lui jouant avec nos amis musiciens encore vivants aujourd'hui à Lafayette. Ça montre vraiment comment l'héritage de Doc perdure près d'un siècle après qu'il a touché un violon pour la première fois. Pour regarder tous les épisodes de La Veillée, rendez-vous sur lpb.org/laveillée pour les sous-titres en anglais et sur telelouisiane.com/laveillée pour les sous-titres en français. De tous nous autres ici à LPB et Télé-Louisiane, soignez-vous autres et à la prochaine.
De l'île Palmetto ou Latanier au canal d'Elcombre à la prairie acadienne, l'avocat Bernard Douan sert le peuple acadien depuis 45 ans. Pour la planification successorale, les affaires ou les blessures corporelles, apprenez plus à bernarddouan.com.